When I was in art school, the biggest problem was learning how to unlearn many of the things that I shouldn't have had in my head yet. My teacher, back when I was in art school, broke things down into stages, and you would then eventually learn how to use them all together. But if you try to do it all at one time, juggling it all at the same time, many people get intimidated and fall away and say, I'm just not a good artist. I believe you can be a good artist, following things though in a very methodical way, in a way where every stage seems very, very easy to understand and do. And if you can just see how they all link together in the end, you're gonna be surprised. Oh, it wasn't as hard as I thought. And we are going to go on a little journey together, painting without a brain. I want you to see how much we can get done without going into shadow, and how at the end, it's just sort of like an extra cherry on top of what it can do to the painting when you just add a little bit into the shadow, but not let it overtake it. For right now, I just want to describe, when I talk about edges a little bit, there are 4 kinds of edges. I'm going to explain where they usually appear on the human heads. We, on a face, have a great variety of edges to play with. 1, we have hard edges. 2, firm edges. 3, soft. And 4, lost. Okay, so on this head, and when I even look at our model, we have like an area of the cheekbone, I'll start there, that has a more rounded cheekbone. The area that's more like a ball in a way, but it has some bone that's creating it, right? And so it's an edge that you can still tell the difference of when the light turns into shadow, but it's got a nice softening edge to it that definitely implies that the thing you're painting or drawing is very rounded. It creates like this soft edge, and you can get that effect just by that edge being softer. Sometimes when you have a guy that has a lot of his skull showing, perhaps right here at the cranium, it might have a little more bone, and see here we have a little bit more flesh and maybe even fat built up in the under layers of the skin, creating that kind of softness. But up here, you're not going to get a lot of that in the forehead. You're going to have more of that skull showing through. That is still going to have a little softness to it, but it will be more firm. A firm edge is going to have more like bone, like also the cartilage in the bone that's in the bridge of the nose here. It's like a firm edge. And then at the roundness of the nose at the end, it's a little more soft and bulbous. That would be the soft edge again, because it's a little more rounded. This has a little more hardness to like a knuckle, where it's just, you can see it's not so round and soft, but it's actually got a firm quality to it. So getting those differences in how you create those edges, like I can be firm here, but maybe it goes soft again right here because it's more of a rounded forehead, but he's got like bone showing right there. You can tell what's going on with the anatomy just by edges alone. The hard edges are usually pretty easy to find. It's usually cast shadows. Like the nose and the neck will find the head is casting. Like if it's a nice direct light, it's going to be a hard light on that cast shadow, and it might just soften as it gets further away from the thing that's causing it. But that's where you would find a hard edge. It would be like a cast shadow. Same like with the nose. That would be where it would be a cast shadow. And right away you can tell that cast shadow also goes over the form and explains the form that it's cast on. And you start to see this variety of edges throughout the whole thing. Make a nice like musical kind of quality of notes. You have hard and soft. You want to vary it up. You want them to like play around. It's like there's be a cast shadow maybe right in there. So there's a hard edge maybe right there, then it gets soft as it goes to the side of the nose. Another hard edge there, the ball of the eye, right, maybe right at that one spot is casting a shadow. You get your different qualities where 2 forms meet and have that harder edge would be right there, and then like you'd have a lot of contrast between that, and then it would blend kind of thing. And then right in there, create a hard edge. And then with a rounded thing, you'd have like a little highlight right there. that would cover those. And also hard edges would be when you have like a light area silhouetted against a dark background, or vice versa. You could have something dark against a light background too, but it could create a very hard edge right there. And it would be very interesting to contrast that with another soft area. Now, lost edges are really the most wonderful because you get to hide form within it. And that would be a case where perhaps somewhere in the background is the exact same value of what's going on. Like the back of the head here happens to have a curtain, or a window that's the exact same. So it just gets lost. You don't need to see it. And that is a real rest for the eye. And then you could actually have maybe what will happen is right here is a window that's got a curtain on it that's just about the same value as the flesh tone, and the two just blend together and they lose each other, and you get a nice lost edge there. And then it would get picked up again because there's a piece of wood behind the head there that shows it again. And you have this nice interplay of soft, hard, lost, things getting lost again. And then, all of a sudden there's something light maybe right there behind the head with a hard edge there, and it goes like that. These are just edges, and it's amazing how much you can actually tell a story about form just using edges. And so when I say this is a hard edge, a firm edge, a soft edge, a lost edge, hopefully now I'm not just talking to somebody who has no clue what I'm saying.
Morgan's course, Painting Without a Brain, is out now. Learn how he draws and paints portraits using oil, digital, charcoal, and pastel. Check it out at proko.com/Weistling.
One of the key areas to try and get right too is the shape around the hairline. And I like to sometimes put some dark halftone right at this area that when we start playing with edges, there's a cleaner color for it to play with. I'm going to the limit on how dark this can go before it would be considered part of the shadow, but I'm still just calling it dark halftone. Mix a little more of the normal dark halftone into it, but this area is definitely a darker plane as it goes into the shadow more. I need to now start establishing that. It's a combination of his beard growth and shaved there, and just the light itself falling away right there. His jowls here are also extreme, causing a much deeper halftone, but not part of the dark, or the shadow, I should say. I'm going to add also a slightly lighter shadow on the lips because they are starting to come into the light and catching some light, so it's not pure black lips here. I'm just going to go ahead and interject a little bit more warmth into them. The chin, I'm going to add a little bit of black, a little bit of the red again to the dark halftone because we have a chin that's got a lot of stubble and causing halftones to really get darker. I'm going to add a little more of the just black for the grayness of the hair against the skin too, just to give that a sense of stubble because it isn't just like fleshy. See, I can start doing that now with just values. Just a little bit of that. And then we know his almost mustache is starting to appear here, so I cannot ignore it now. I can just put it in with just that little bit of a grayer dark halftone. And pretty soon, it just starts getting more and more like what we're seeing. Take a look in the mirror. Like, yeah, we're getting there. Be easy to create more subtlety as we go. Go back to my dark, my average dark. I'm going to add some alizarin crimson to it because there are some little darks when I squint down in the eye area. The areas around the eye have a lot of red in them, the tear duct and things like that. You don't want to have a bunch of coldness inside that area of the eye. You can just look at it and see that there's a lot more warmth. It's an interesting thing when flesh touches flesh and creates a little like a little shadow area or something. Because we are filled with blood that's alive and we're warm-blooded and we do that, you actually create little creases that actually are very red, very warm. So when you see creases in a face, the two things meeting, never let that little bit get cold on you. Always add some red or some kind of warm color to give your human model some humanity there with blood running through him. Like this crease on the side of the nose, if you look in your reference, you can see right in here where the flesh is close to flesh, it really warms up. You don't want that to go too cool. Otherwise, it won't ring true that we all know as humans. We just know it when we see it. We just go, yeah, that looks more right, you know? And I'm going to go back to my original color. Make sure I don't lose the overall shadow pattern here. Go back to my dark halftone. Reestablish my drawing. Just make sure. Well, the tip of his nose is just a little bit brighter. So I'm going to go a little bit more specific here with his nose. We're going to do it all at the end to show you how little importance shadow areas really are. Sometimes the best tool for edges, other than a brush, is actually using our finger. So I'm looking at the reference, you should see it, and I'm once again going to talk about that cheekbone of his that has such a nice soft edge. It's not a firm as much as it's soft. It's very, very rounded and nice. Now, here's the thing. To get a clean edge, best to do one swipe if you could. Let's not go and pet the thing to death and just get it to the point where that's going to make a dirty color out of everything. But right now I want to just do a nice blend with my finger here and there. So I'm going to just sort of go in there, and I had to do one swap the other way. I'm wiping my finger each time on my rag, by the way. It's in my lap. Now you can't do this if you let the painting dry overnight or something, and maybe it's too dry at this point. Which is why I have to do this now, even though for me it's 11:30 at night right now, and I don't want to go to bed until I've covered edges with you, so I can do some of this. I'm a night owl anyway, so this is easy for me. And when I do this, I'm not saying to myself, oh, every single one of these little edges I'm doing and swipes is going to be the finale of just never touching it again. This is me getting in here and seeing what works, but if it doesn't, I'll just go in with my brush now. I actually use my finger like I'm still drawing with charcoal. Like I would do this with actual charcoal. I also like to do pastel. It's a really fun portrait medium, doing heads. And I do the same exact thing when there's a certain point with a pastel where you might think, oh, he's not very good at edges. And then all of a sudden with a finger, in just like 5 minutes, it can just pop alive. So whatever doesn't work, we're gonna go back in with a brush, put down some more paint, establish our drawing again. Anything that we may have lost with our finger. Finger can't do it all, but it can do a lot. See, if you don't have that paint we first put down with those halftones and stuff, this is what the madness ends up having some method to. Now, there are some things where I see lost edges, like right here, because he has growth on his beard and the value behind him is similar. It actually kind of blends in with the background there. Okay, so what I've done is kind of go in there, soften some things that right away help me, and now I can just get some of those planes. I'm actually, like you can see, I'm drawing with my finger. So now I'm gonna go in there and reestablish some of the drawing that got off with my finger. Kind of wanted it to get a little out of control in a way, just in terms of edges, so that I can go in there and really assess what I can do to improve it. If you really look at it, you'll see that it's still fairly monochromatic in just the flesh tone. We're just working within the same color, only darker and lighter. we're not going to leave it there. I'm going to take you to the next stage soon of where that just suddenly can change immediately, where we just add a few variations of color and it'll just like pop.
There are way more lessons like this in Morgan's course at proko.com/Weistling. If you want to paint portraits, he's got you covered with foundational knowledge and step-by-step guidance that will get you making awesome portraits in no time. He'll share his techniques and process across several demos in different media. Morgan is one of my favorite artists of all time. Now he has a course on Proko. Oh yeah. Check it out and tell him I said hi.